Okay, I believe we are live. So happy Monday, everyone. This is Kitty Chambliss and our wonderful and amazing mindset coach, B, coming at you live with another incredible topic. And we are excited to be here with you. So if you are seeing this online in our Loving Without Boundaries community on Facebook, we want to say that we're glad that you are here getting the support that you need. And we are now 14,000, almost 500 strong in our growing group. And we are honored to be here giving these type of educational resources, and so that you feel our love and our support and know that you are not alone. If you are seeing this on one of our other platforms, we're excited that you're here. We're thrilled to have you be watching. And if you are looking for community, feel free to join us on Facebook on our private community. You can just simply do a search for Loving Without Boundaries, Healthy Open Relationships and Lifestyle Freedom. And there you can be surrounded by just a lot of love and support. We do everything we can to help keep those communities safe for you. And with no further ado, let's get into our topic for today that the lovely B came up with. So we're going to be talking about Beyond Perfectionism. So I will go ahead and give the mic over to you, B, and have you start to kick us off. And I'm really excited to have this important topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Kitty. It is indeed an important topic, which is a personal relevance to me as well. I want to share with you all, like really vulnerably, that I struggled, like seriously struggled with perfectionism for about 10 years, to the degree that it developed into a medical level obsessive compulsive disorder, and I had to take medication as well.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. I didn't know that.
Semi-functional. So I have an internal experience of what it might mean to struggle with perfectionism. And I also see in so many people, whether in the consensual non-monogamous lifestyle or outside of the lifestyle, how much they can struggle with the grip of perfectionism. So it's an incredibly common phenomenon in the human experience. And of course, because it affects our individual well-being and focus, it can affect our consensual non-monogamous relationships as well. What can we say about the reasons is that the reasons can vary from individual to individual. It will take really self-reflection to get down to the roots of our own individual perfectionism. So we can turn it around to the degree that we want to. Like, just give you some of the reasons. It can be fear of failure, or even fear of success, for example, or possibly internalizing certain standards from our environment, because there are like certain professions as well where there's the need for high level of accuracy, attention to detail. For example, surgeons, lawyers, or aviation engineering. It's really important that we are focused on those details and get things flawless. So when we talk about perfectionism, it can be something that is externally prescribed, like such profession fuels perfectionism and doing things without mistakes. And this can also come from our internal experience, which is internally prescribed when we either aim to please with that, so it can look as people-pleasing strategies, or it can come from a really harsh inner critic that has nothing to do with how other people see us. It's this internal monologue that keeps going on inside of us and keeps us being stuck in this has to be perfect, this has to be flawless. And I want to point out a really important distinction. So perfectionism, like so many things, happens in a context. It can be a source of so many amazing things. For example, we can be competent in an area, we develop mastery, we can have positive feedback, it can bring a sense of achievement, feel-good qualities for sure, we feel valued as well. But what's the difference between that and aiming for excellence, for example, is this driving me and I can stop whenever I want it and can lean into my soothing system? For example, I can sleep properly, I can relax, or is it something that feels compulsive and something that I can't stop? And the problems arise when we have that type of perfectionism or aiming for excellence, where we can't stop and it starts taking over our life and our relationships. So this is a few things that I wanted to say as an introduction, and Kitty and I are gonna have a deeper dive of some of the manifestations of in our consensual monogamous relationships of perfectionism.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing this important topic to light. I'm sure a lot of people here, again, whether you're practicing consensual non-monogamy or polyamory or relationship anarchy, whatever it is for you, that sense of perfectionism can still invade our relationships, including our relationship with ourselves, right? Because if we're beating ourselves up, if that inner critic is really loud, that can affect our sense of self-worth, our confidence, and then that can show up in our relationships. So one thing I think that's really important to remember is that at its root, perfectionism isn't really about a deep love of being meticulous, or perfect, really. And at the end of the day, it's really about fear of making a mistake, fear of success, as B said earlier, fear of failure, fear of disappointing others. So we can also think of perfectionism as the voice of the oppressor, right? The oppressor of our inner critic. And remember that fear can always be lurking behind perfectionism. But what's great about that is when you know that, then that helps you understand a little bit better about how to maneuver through that. So I'd love to give the mic back over to you, B. And thank you again for this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you pointed it out, Kiri, that at the root of it, the perfectionism is there some type of fear. And of course, we keep talking about those get safe responses. If we show up from fear in one area of our life, it is likely to spill over to our relationships as well, and we will show up from a more contracted sense of self. So what can happen in our relationship dynamics is we enter into this painful cycle when we feel and act from places of freeze, fight, or free responses, for example. Or there's an extension to that, the attach, cry for help, collapse, submit, or people please responses. What else can happen? Because our emotional states are fueled by our thoughts at their root. So when we go up from perfectionism, one trait of perfectionism is living with our worst fears. So predicting the worst outcomes is seeing disaster in everything. So it's either I do this, either everything is perfect, or everything is disastrous and the world's gonna fall apart. And this, of course, shows up in relationships as well. Like I'm either behaving in a certain way and I'm flawless, or I'm completely losing this relationship and I'm gonna be abandoned and rejected. So it can be really devastating for our individual well-being and our relationships as well if we constantly live in the place of our worst case scenarios. And we can create tension with our partners as well, because the grip of these stories, these really scary stories, can be so strong that we're unable to be present with this other person, unable to be present with reality, because we're in the hold of this story. So we're likely to assume what this other person thinks, feels, and what their intentions are, and what we feel inside. Our emotions and body sensations become our truth instead of our focus on our reality. So if I feel angry, if I feel that I'm going to be abandoned because I'm not flawless, because I made a mistake, that means that's the truth. So there's a type of fusion is happening as well. And that's a dangerous place to be, because from that place, we are likely gonna act from this emotional state. So if I'm angry, then means that I act angry as well. And this can have really destructive effects on relationships as well. And one of the ways that it can show up on a behavioral level is when we aim for control, even just unintentional, because we can't consider other perspectives, other scenarios other than our worst fears. So, of course, our nervous system, our brain wants to get us safe and wants to control the outcomes. We also likely to show up from what we call the four horsemen of apocalypse is the criticism, contempt, defensiveness, or stonewalling. And of course, I already touched on this black and white thinking, this either or. So there's no middle ground, there's no gray, there's no spectrum. Either this happens or everything else falls apart. So these are really a place of contraction. It's a self that keeps shrinking on itself. And from this place, what happens is it affects how we connect with others as well. Because if I'm in my head, if I'm in the space of my worst case scenarios, if I feel regret about the past and keep beating myself up, so if I'm either in the past or with my future fears, then who is present with this other person? Who is present with the relationship? Who is present with reality and the truth that's unfolding in front of my eyes?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. That was so beautifully demonstrated in how you described that, B. And I really appreciate everything that you shared there. And I couldn't agree more. The only thing I would add here is that also perfectionism can also be an avoidance tactic. We can end up hiding there, so to speak, because we might be continuing to make things quote unquote perfect, which is a myth anyway, to possibly avoid feeling negative emotions or worry about rejection from others. And again, there's that fear of failure that can come up. But at the end of the day, the problem is that, that perfectionism just doesn't work. And so it's important just to realize that there are ways to maneuver through that. And I'm sure we'll be talking about some of that as well. And also perfectionism can really be a form of self-abuse in a way, by keeping us paralyzed and not being able to make forward progress that we can then turn around and celebrate, which can increase our confidence, which can increase our self-worth and our self-respect. So it can really be an insidious problem. And I really want to honor you, B, for just being so vulnerable with us here to let us know how that's impacted your life. And I'd love to give that mic back over to you again.
Thank you, Kitty. I want to stack on you mentioning that perfectionism is also avoidance strategy, and unintentional one. So we're definitely not blaming or shaming anyone here. Is simply that we're in this space at Loving Without Boundaries often talk about that our emotions have wisdom inside of them, really important messages. So if we're unable or unwilling to listen to those messages of discomfort, the frustration, the fear, the anger, then we're going to miss out on so many things. Like, as I said, connecting in present time with our partners, and also from a place of avoidance, problem solving in our relationship or creating successful outcomes is going to be really difficult. And it's going to affect not only our communications, but also how we navigate boundary settings or request our boundaries being met, or even just having healthy boundaries, or how we're going to create agreements. So instead of if we come from this stressful place of everything has to be perfect, instead of the boundary settings and agreements being a collaborative, beautiful teamwork effort for both of us, they can become a battlefield of interruptions and a place of constant stress and fear. It's also possible that we're so afraid of making a mistake that we're paralyzed into indecision, and we're like, okay, I'm not ready. I can't speak up. I'm not ready to do anything or create agreements or set a boundary because I don't feel ready. It has to be perfect, and I feel paralyzed. It's too much. There's too big expectation that I put on myself, so I don't move into the work. And nothing can be worse than inaction, because if we start creating those agreements, practice those boundary settings, what we have from that, even if they may not be perfect at the beginning, is that we learn from them. At least, and I really love this quote, that once we start walking the path appears. So we have to start somewhere and learn from the experiences to be able to refine our agreements and boundaries so that we can one day move into that level of success that we want to. So the failures, the mistakes are actually a really important part of the process of creating relationship fulfillment and balanced agreements over a long time. And I also want to mention something else that you, Kitty, talked about perfectionism being a form of self-abuse. And from that place, of course, we're not only going to be critical with ourselves, like highly critical, but it's it's also possible, and I've seen it in myself and I've seen it in others, that that internal standard is going to get projected to our partners, to our metas, to our families, to our kids, to our coworkers, and we're going to have these incredible high expectations projected on them. And expectations are the quickest way for us to get disappointed. So we create lots of pain if we have these unrealistic expectations, and we're missing out on empathy as well, because from that place it's my expectation or nothing. So it's my way or the highway. There's this unwillingness of willing and ability, lack of ability to see where this other person is coming from. So our connection is going to be diminished, and our conversations are going to be diminished, because, for example, embodied nonviolent communication can't happen from a place of judgment and a place of high expectations, but really seeing each other eye to eye on the level of the needs and having that ability to consider different perspectives. So negative core images can show up not only how I look at myself, but how I look at other people. So again, we're back to having a relationship as a battlefield experience. Constant resentment, unmet needs, and also ruptures that we're unable to fix, because either there's so much expectation that it has to be in a certain way, or else it's a failure, or there's avoidance to fix those particular ruptures.
Yeah. So insightful what you shared there. And what I will stack on that is that it can also be detrimental to our connection and our relationships if we're expecting our partner or partners to be perfect, right? Because when we are stepping outside of traditional monogamy, where we have lots of role models, with polyamory and consensual non-monogamy, we may not have role models for how to do it. We may be doing our best to read a book or watch a video like you all are doing now, and unfortunately be maybe expecting not only ourselves, but the other players, the other partners, to be perfect. And of course, we're going to make mistakes. Mistakes are how we grow. Mistakes are how we learn, because all growth is outside of our comfort zone. So that idea of expecting your partner to be perfect or to read your mind can really impede a sense of forgiveness, and really giving the other person some grace as well. And to, instead of appreciating their efforts and noticing how they're putting in the work, noticing how they're trying, or they're human, right? Because we all have different emotions that come up, just like we talked about fear earlier. That's a very human emotion. And same thing with jealousy or insecurity that can come up with consensual non-monogamy. They are normal emotions. So if we point the finger and blame the other person for having normal emotions, and also we don't forgive them if they maybe forgot an agreement, or an agreement wasn't quite clear, maybe from a place of self-responsibility, realizing that it takes multiple people to create agreements, and they will evolve, they will change, partly because we as humans evolve and change over time. Our needs evolve and change over time. So that's why it's so important to know that it's up to each of us to get the skills that we need in order to be in healthy dynamics. That takes work from all parties, and also be appreciating and noticing the hard work that the other people are doing. Because coloring outside the lines of heteronormative monogamy is not easy. It is challenging. And so that's why it's really important to show up in that way as well. And what I'll add here is just that impact that perfectionism can have on our emotional and physical well-being. Because when we are feeling that stress, we're adding cortisol into our system. We're putting ourselves in some ways in that fight, flight, or freeze mode, if you don't know how to navigate that, which can cause overwhelm, corrosive jealousy and envy, a sense of powerlessness, feeling like a victim, like life is happening to you, instead of knowing that you are the creator of your experience. You are in charge of your happiness and your emotional well-being. And if without having the right tools or the right support or the right guidance, it can lead to burnout, it can lead to depression, or even addictions when we are seeking substances to help numb those feelings, which is another way that we're self-abusing ourselves, to bring it back to what we were talking about earlier, which again can cause you to be not as resourced, It can affect your sleep, your fatigue, so that you're not able to bring the best version of you to your relationships and to yourself, by not practicing that self-care. So I'll go ahead and give the mic back over to you, B.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Kirian. One thing that occurred to me that I recently read, that studies have been conducted, and sadly, perfectionistic tendencies saw high correlation with suicidal ideation as well.
Mm,
So it even goes deeper than burnout, depression, and addictions. They're all absolutely terrible
mhm,
conditions, and sadly some people even take it further, because there's such an amount of hopelessness and helplessness connected to the perfectionist trap. And I also want to circle back to what you mentioned, that this place is a place where we struggle and suffer a lot. So as I
mhm,
said, there are beautiful benefits and beautiful feedback that we get, for example, in our work, or the sense of accomplishment. But mostly with perfectionism, what happens is our threat system is online, and when that happens, it's not possible to lean into like more positive emotions. So we're gonna miss out on other amazing emotions, because our system is flooded with stress hormones, and we're a grip of those. So we're gonna miss out on the lack of fulfillment overall, and other positive emotions like love, feeling that we are a team, the contentment, the joy, and even just feeling flow. And from that place, all what we experience in our consensual non-monogamous relationships are gonna feel really incredibly threatening, and maybe can seem even bigger threat than they actually are,
mhm.
because they run with the stress hormones, our nervous system runs with that, and it definitely takes away this place of groundedness in our
Mhm.
life and
Yeah.
relationship. And I really want to help you all, and I would love to see everyone thriving in their relationships, and having those beautiful feelings and connectedness and teamwork. And one way is to dial down perfectionistic tendencies if you notice it in yourself, or helped your loved ones from a place of nurturer, and get the benefits of that, and also turn down the volume on the disadvantages. So find that balance where I get the
Mhm.
good stuff, and I lower the negative stuff that comes from that. And there are definitely ways to do that.
I love the way you brought it back to finding that balance. Like, it's good to strive to be the best version of you, but also have that empathy, and again, noticing what you're focusing on. So what I will also share here is that you can focus on progress, the progress that you're making, the progress that your partners are making. Because again, this isn't easy when we are practicing some form of consensual non-monogamy. And so focusing on progress, not perfection,
Yeah.
and to really give you that resolve that you can have the courage to be imperfect, and you can again notice and appreciate what your loved ones are doing around you, to as they're learning, as they're growing. It's not how many times we fall down, it's of course how many times that we get back up, because when we're doing that, we're building resilience, we're building our own courage, and we're showing ourselves what we're capable of. So you absolutely can embrace different standards for yourself and your relationships, and be self-reflective about where are your areas of growth, and instead of turning around and pointing fingers at other people. And you can also explore alternative strategies for meeting your needs, because that's one of the things that we lean into and embrace with consensual non-monogamy, is that there are many ways to get our needs met, both our own autonomous needs and our relational needs, because it's not, many of us think that it's not really realistic to get every single one of our needs met by one person. So a lot of that can be self-care, remembering that your platonic intimate relationships, your emotional connections are just as important as those other intimate relationships, and that you can learn the skills to build that empathy muscle, those self-care practices, your communication skills, and understanding that you can create positive change in your life if you draw a line in the sand and make that commitment to yourself. So If any of this is resonating with you, I would love to offer you to just remember that you're not alone. If you're not part of our online community, remember that you can come join us on our private Facebook group. Again, if you missed the beginning, that is, if you do a search for Loving Without Boundaries, Healthy Open Relationships and Lifestyle Freedom. You can join us there. There's also our podcast, Loving Without Boundaries, and lots of different blog posts. You can get on our mailing list so that you don't miss anything. And also, if you are wanting to work with a mentor, with a coach, and you want to have a conversation to see how you can call forth your best version of you and learn all these different skills that we've been talking about, I invite you to book a call. Here's the link. It's lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply. That will take you right into my calendar, and you just pick a time slot that works for you. There'll be a very brief form for you to fill out. That just gives me a little bit of an understanding for our conversation so that we can hit the ground running on that call, so that you get a lot of clarity and value from our time there together. And if it seems like we're a fit, I'll explain you what working together could look like. And if the timing isn't quite right or we're not a fit, I will let you know that as well. And I will do my best to steer you in the best direction for you so that you get a lot of guidance and clarity. But know that you're not alone. Help is out there. And whether now might be the right time to potentially work with a coach or a mentor or a guide or not, we hope that you got a lot out of our message. And Bia, of course, I want to give you a chance to finish up any last words. And I know a lot of times you have some inquisitive questions for folks to think about. So I'd love to let you go ahead and do that.
This time as well. And to second what you said, Kitty, especially coming from my own experience as well, I know that there's a way out of that grip of perfection, and that it's possible to find ease in imperfections. And I would take it even further, such as I took it further in my life, utilizing the right skill set over time, is that we can even learn to embrace imperfections and get the benefit of the differences and the learnings from there. So this can be a beautiful and very rewarding path. So I want to leave you all with that sense of hope and encouragement. And yes, Kiri, I have a few questions that I want to give to these beautiful people. So a few self-reflecting questions, because sometimes we think that we know the answers, but questions can help to, oh, really, this is what's going on. So the first question to you is like, how does perfectionism manifest in your relationships? And what impact does it have on your ability to be present and enjoy moments?
I love that. Yeah, those are great questions. Let me see if I can, I'm going to see if I can put those up. Let me see. Does that work? Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So how does perfectionism manifest in your relationships? And what was the other one?
And what impact does it have on your ability to be present and enjoy moments?
Mm-hmm. Both great questions. So we love to leave you with a little bit of self-reflection, because again, that's what a lot of this work is about, is moving away from corrosive blaming and finger pointing and really come back to that place of self-responsibility, of knowing that you are the one that's in charge of your happiness, of your health, of your relationships. So with that, again, I just want to thank you, B, for your time and this beautiful topic. And thank you all for listening and being a part of our community. And we will wish you a happy Monday, a beautiful week. And again, if you are looking for some additional help with your relationships, you can feel free to book that introductory free breakthrough session at that link there, lovingwithoutboundaries.com/apply. And otherwise, we just want to say we appreciate you. We're sending you lots of love and lots of healthy vibes your way. And know that we are cheering you on every step of the way. Until next time, thank you.